NERDSoul. Yeah, late ill kid at OneYoungsta holding it down, bringing that street geek and nerd soul. What is up, my people? Today, coming with another wonderful episode, but a special episode of On Screen and Specials, where we're going to be breaking down season 2 of Lifetime's Surviving R. Kelly. I am here, joined to my right by the awesome, the amazing, the beautifully wonderful Lady Lisa.
Hey, y'all.
Oh, boy. So, we covered season 1, and since then there have been major developments. You know what I'm saying? You know, court cases, charges, all kinds of stuff. And this documentary kind of follows up on what kind of happened, the fallout from season 1.
Yeah.
So basically we're going to be getting into pretty much the highs, the lows, all the moments that really seemed to impress on us and seemed serious from this.
Yeah, let me first say, I'm kind of glad that this part 2, didn't seem to have the forced dramatics that the first one did.
Yeah.
The first one, you could tell they were trying to kind of force the drama. In this one, not nearly as much. It's there,
yeah, but
not nearly as much. And to me, that made it better.
Definitely. So I guess I'll start off first with how they touch on the brothers and the childhood that they shared.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They open up really talking about the hurt and the harm that they kind of experienced, you know, with the kind of like neighborhood uncle that ingratiated himself, you know, being with kids around the neighborhood and always seemed to be cool. And then when he was able to get them alone, exposed himself.
Yeah. And remember, I was telling you what got me about that though is that, supposedly that same man that exposed himself did, molest one of them or all of them at some point.
Yeah.
And so that means that they didn't touch on how did that come to be, because when they told the story about when he exposed himself, all of them went scrambling and ran. Well, that means that someone was lured back.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important parallel as to us all, I'm sure, being confused about how these girls continuously got lured back to R. Kelly.
Yeah, and they talked about how he said, don't tell anybody.
Right.
And also, you could see even as grown men, they still have not yet dealt with it.
No.
And not talking about R. Kelly, because R. Kelly wasn't, of course, involved in, any questioning. But you could see his 2 brothers have still not fully dealt, because they couldn't even, it was tough for them to even talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with, it's interesting, you're dealing with 3 victims that have all been victimized the same, because it wasn't only him. They said it was also a family member. That was probably a woman. Because they've been like really, really like guarded on that one.
Yeah.
But you have 3 victims. R. Kelly became a victimizer. His brother that's in jail, we don't know how that played out.
Yeah.
But maybe it might have been something where he became violent or became very, antagonistic.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, because I don't think they even talked about why he's in jail.
We don't really know why he's in jail.
Yeah.
And then you have the other brother that he blamed, we'll talk about later.
Lord.
He tried to blame for the sex tape, who seems to be very closed off. I mean, I know he's answering questions for the documentary, but he seems very, very guarded and very closed off compared to, say R. Kelly or his other brother that's in jail.
Yeah.
And it's just sad to see that these men are, 50s, and it's still affecting them. They can still barely talk about it.
Yeah.
So this hurt runs deep, and it's crazy because, of course, I can't remember the brother that got blamed right now, his name, but it probably hurts even deeper because then his own brother essentially tried to set him up for his crime.
Exactly. So it's like R. Kelly going out here doing all that he want to do, and then he wants to throw his brother under the bus to take the blame for all that he was doing. And it's just, how low. Oh my Lord.
And then even after he said, no, I'm not going to take the blame, R. Kelly went around just
still telling folks, oh, that's my brother.
Just telling people, no, it's not me, it's my brother. And
it's my twin brother. Remember he said it was a twin. You don't have a twin brother.
And that is like destructive. Imagine, and we were talking about, like, imagine, R. Kelly tells, like they say he told his hairdresser, like, hey, no, that's my brother. It's not me. Don't worry about me. It's not me. It's my brother. Well, say his brother saw her at the store, was like, hi, how you doing? And then she'd give him some weird kind of vibe, and he'd be like, yo, what's wrong with her? You know what I'm saying? Because in his mind, he's like, I'm just saying hi. Yeah. But from her perspective, she's like, this dude is a predator. And technically, they would both be right. I mean, she wouldn't be right, but for what she knows. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Or what she had been told.
Or what she had been told, yeah. So from her, all her knowledge, all she got is that, hey, he's the guy in the tape, and he is a pedophile and all this stuff. And that is insidious to do that to your own brother.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Especially your own brother who hasn't done anything to you.
Yeah.
I can see if they were brothers and maybe they had been, mean and evil to each other since they were born or whatever, but his brother had done nothing to him, and even sadly protected him when he found that tape, he said, of a whole bunch of white girls.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he protected him.
Yeah.
And he still threw him way under the bus.
Yep.
And it's...
Yeah.
That's just a deceptive, insidious nature that is tough to overlook.
Yeah.
But next I wanted to touch on, they talk about the parents and what their accountability is or isn't. Mm-hmm. And the way that it seemed to be framed to me was that they were trying to ease the burden, like it's not, the parents, it wasn't that bad. Now, the Clarys, I don't believe it was that bad, because I believe with the Clarys, Azrael was sneaking and going, behind their back. And when you're a parent, I mean, if your kid lies to you, they just lie. You can't do nothing. And I remember there was another child that had been telling her mom that she was going to be with friends or something, and was going to be with R. Kelly. So, I mean, and she was like working overnight or something. There was another mom from the first season.
You know what?
And she was like a nurse or something, working overnight.
I don't know, but I'm going to tell you something I do want to do. And I actually wish we had done it before this. But I want to sit down and actually really get clear who is who. You know what I mean? Because I think it's hard not to construe what parents go with what child and what the exact situation is of each family, if you will. But let me say on that. The only parents that I have a hard time not setting a heavy plate of blame with.
The Savages.
I guess it's maybe the Savages. The ones who actually took their child to an R. Kelly concert.
Yeah.
And allowed said child to go backstage with him without them.
supervision.
You have no idea.
You don't know this man.
You don't know this man.
Let's say R. Kelly was great. You don't know him.
You don't know him. And you have no idea what conversations were had. You don't know if they had sex. You don't know what happened. You have no idea. You don't know if the whole plan of her being with him started when they were backstage. Because see, that was his open door opportunity. He could have just went in and went straight to the point, because he could have seen it as, this is freaking field day for me. I've had parents hand her to me on a silver platter.
Yeah.
I gotta use this for all it's worth. And I'm sorry, I cannot help but give them a hefty plate of blame, because your job as a parent, first and foremost, is to protect your child from people like him.
And the reason to take a little bit of heat off of them, here's why. Celebrity culture automatically ascribes goodness to celebrity. Think about it. In our culture, and we shouldn't, but money equals good, or pretty equals good. And it's like, you just think that this person is going to be good just because he's a celebrity.
Not to the point.
That's why people say, don't meet your heroes, because they're so surprised that this person is, just because you thought they were a celebrity, that they were going to be nice or good or whatever.
Yes, but not to the point of leaving your child backstage with them.
Oh, no, I'm not saying
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying I can see where they were like, oh, he's R. Kelly. He's R. Kelly.
Yeah, he's R. Kelly. The same R. Kelly.
He's a nice man.
The same R. Kelly.
He's a celebrity.
The same R. Kelly.
He's rich. That doesn't mean he's a nice man.
The same R. Kelly that had already been in the news about Aaliyah.
Yep.
This is after that.
Yep.
This is after that.
True that.
So, no and no on both of those.
Yeah. And the idea of we should be ashamed of ourselves because we're putting the parents on trial is asinine to me, because I believe you can do both.
Thank you.
You can say, hey, R. Kelly needs to go to jail. And hey, these parents put their kids in harm's way.
Absolutely.
And what happened after R. Kelly met them
is on R.
Kelly.
However,
but them getting in the grips of R. Kelly is their fault. You are charged. God gave you this child to protect, to raise, and foster their youth into adulthood, nurture them. Not to lay them before some lion or some serpent, or put them in the hands of someone who's evil.
Yeah. And I'm not
because they're
I'm agreeing with you. I just want to make it clear for me, and I think for you too. We're not saying this about all the parents.
No, not all the parents. We're talking about the savages.
The savages,
yeah,
because they are the ones who took their child to the concert and allowed their child to go backstage with him alone, which is the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Even look, and I said this, we were talking. I don't care if he was Mr. Rogers. And to this day, we still have not heard anything negative about Mr. Rogers.
Nope.
In any way, shape, or form. And I don't care if it was Mr. Rogers. I still won't go let my child go backstage with him. Why? Because I don't know you. I don't know you for real. I know you got a show. I know you seem real nice on the show, but I don't know you.
Yeah. And
it's improper.
Yeah,
You're a grown man. It's improper to allow your teenage daughter to go backstage with a grown man. It's inappropriate and improper at the least.
True.
That's at the least.
At the very least, yeah. I also want to hit on kind of like the blowback to just talk about the reach of celebrity culture, and for us to always be on vigilant guard for it, because there were all kinds of threats and blowback from either R. Kelly's camp or R. Kelly fans, that were like calling in gun threats and, all kinds of stuff, and threatening the girls or the producers and directors and all this stuff. And it just goes to show the cult of personality and also the reach that celebrity culture gives you.
Yeah.
Because people are willing to do things that I don't believe that they would ever do normally on their own, but there's something about celebrity culture that lends you to, I don't know, just a different mindset. And I think we all need to be very mindful of that because, I mean, essentially people that weren't even tied to R. Kelly were committing crimes. Like people were doxing people online, people were calling in threats to events, now this is outside of the R. Kelly camp. The R. Kelly camp was also doing stuff too, like releasing nude photos and all that kind of stuff. So you had that stuff as well, which are also crimes. But, the threats and the blowback was pretty intense.
Yeah, it's craziness. I think, I do really think it's possible for people to get caught up. And, I'm on the fence in terms of thinking, your true character comes out when you're in a situation like that, when you're giving the choice of, hey, I'll give you X amount of money if you do this in terms of his camp. Or if it's a thing of, hey, you get caught up so much in celebrity culture that you're, just being nasty to people online and, saying they should die and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the people like in his camp, I think it's a combination. I think it's part of, you get offered so much money, you get blinded and you get blinded by the life. And for others, that's you.
Yeah.
That's just you. And I don't think it's a way to say it's either or. I think it's kind of a mix. But I will say this. That's why it's so important to have standards and true standards.
Yeah.
Not basic beliefs, not basic preferences. No, standards. Standards mean, I don't care if you offer me $10 million. I'm not going to get no 15-year-old girl for you.
Yeah.
That's a standard.
Or I'm not threatening someone's family.
Thank you.
For you.
That's a standard.
Yeah.
And,
I wanted to touch on this for a second, where they had like people like Angela Yee on there. People, and this kind of goes back a little bit to the stand-up that Dave Chappelle had. Where he was talking about like, I was offered to be on there. They contacted. He was like, but I don't know this dude.
Right.
Like, I don't know this guy.
Right.
And I do think there's a lot of people in this documentary where I'm like, why are you here? Like, I don't think Angela Yee, there's a couple of other celebrities that I don't think really add anything. Even Dame Dash, I don't think adds anything. Now, the psychologists and stuff, I get that.
Right. Well, but they had different people from the media, different people who had been reporting on R. Kelly through all of these years. So I think that's why they were on it, including Angela Yee. In terms of Damian Dash, you and I talked about this. I understood, and especially after him speaking about it, I understand that, him not wanting to kind of come out and say anything about R. Kelly while Aaliyah was still alive because, he didn't want to hurt her or take her through anymore.
Yeah.
However,
who is he protecting now?
Once Aaliyah passed, he had,
full
reign and full opportunity to go full blast on him, and he did not. And for him to sit on that interview and talk about how everybody else shoulda, woulda, coulda, it's like you too.
Yeah, it's like you too. You were sitting there in a video with him dancing around talking about Fiesta. So don't come with me. It's kind of like that whole Ricky Gervais monologue at the Golden Globes. It's like you're full of poop.
Right.
It's like, this is bull crap.
It's like, how you gonna sit here and talk about, he wanted to act like, he had such an issue with R. Kelly and like, he said something to the degree of he could barely look at him or something like that. And it's like, Oh, was that before or after the video?
Was that before or after the video, or before or after you had been moving in the space around with him and not speaking out against him, doing anything?
Like,
There are, because they even talk about, like, where do you draw the line? That, because you could say, oh, okay, we're not listening to R. Kelly's music, but what about all the music that he's written for other artists?
Right.
And are those artists going to donate all the money they've made on them songs and stuff? So, like, when you start really trying to figure out the line, it gets funny, especially when people have their own, when people have their own kind of like self-righteousness.
Yeah.
Like Dame Dash, like, oh, well, what about all these other people? It's like, what about you?
Yeah, I think in terms of that, to touch on whether or not people should listen to his music and whatnot, everyone has to make their own personal choice in terms of that. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I'm not able to listen to his music and enjoy it anymore. That's just me personally. Because anything that I listen to, it makes me feel like, especially most of his music.
Yeah, because
it makes me feel like
charged.
Right. This had to do with this little girl or that little girl, and I can't listen to his music without thinking about, what he did to these girls. It makes me feel uneasy. Even if it's I Believe I Can Fly. You know what I mean? It just makes me feel uneasy. That's me personally. I'm not going to judge anyone else because someone else may not feel that way.
I will say the kind of parallel somebody tried to make in the documentary about a painter. A painting and a song are two different things. They're both creative, they're both art, but they're two different things. A painter, you can look at a painting and just see the painting. You're listening to this man's voice talk about and discuss sexual situations when his acts of crime were sexual situations. So it would be different if maybe he was an arsonist, but his songs were about, I don't know, something that had nothing to do with arson. You wouldn't think of that, but his songs were, sexually charged, and his crimes were sexually charged. So now the crime and the music runs parallel.
Right.
So it's not the same as a painting. You can look at a painting and you don't have to hear that painter's voice.
Right, but for all of it, you're talking about senses, right? And so in interpretation, because a lot of people, talk about interpretation of art. Mm-hmm. Some people can see things in art that others would never see. They can see that the artist, painted this painting in a sensual or maybe sexual way. Oh, the artist was angry. The artist was sad. The artist was whatever. So it is all art. So I kind of see. I think it was Cheryl Lee Ralph who said that in the show documentary. And so I understand what they're saying in terms of that. Again, I think it's up to everyone to make that choice for themselves.
Word.
If I could, if it's not too soon, I wanted to talk about. God, I lost my train of thought. Just that quick. Oh yes, what you and I were talking about in terms of the responsibility that we differed on, that people should take and that continue to buy his records and continue to go to his shows.
Oh no, I don't think we differed. I don't think we differed on their responsibility. I think we differed on the documentary trying to bring it up as if it's as important as the prosecutors and the policemen and the record companies that actually had real power. That because don't get me wrong, people were buying his albums and it gave him money
right.
and bought tickets and gave him money. But we're also talking about a person who teachers knew, officers knew, prosecutors knew, lawyers knew, and this is in Chicago, not like worldwide, but in that city or in that state knew, did nothing. But to me, there's an episode in this documentary that seemed like they were trying to say like, yeah, all these people knew and had done things, but the people kept buying his albums. And it's like, whoa, don't try to put the blame on the working man. So it's not that they don't, it's not that they didn't have their hand in it, but I have this problem with our society in general wanting to blame the everyday person instead of the people with real power.
But see, and like I was saying, it's not an either or.
Oh see, no, I'm not saying that. I think in the pie chart of blame, the regular the plumber that bought a R. Kelly CD is on the 5%, and they're skipping the people at the 70% end of the pie chart to talk about the plumber or talk about the beautician that bought the CD. You know what I'm saying?
But see, I don't think it's that simplistic.
Okay.
You know, I really think it all gets muddled together because it, quite honestly, the way the system is set up, unfortunately, the police and ADA and whoever else would not be so compelled to protect someone like R. Kelly if he wasn't continuing to bring in the money that he was bringing in, to be the celebrity that he was, to sell out shows that he was selling out that was bringing money to the city, on and on and on. They would not be so compelled to protect him and receive the money that I'm sure they were receiving.
Yeah.
If it had not been for people continuing to buy R. Kelly's music and to buy records to his, buy tickets to his show. So it all works hand in hand. Except
that they took an office that has a higher standard. You know what I'm saying? That an officer is sworn an oath. A prosecutor, lawyers are sworn an oath. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that. It just seemed at that one part, and it might have been like episode 5 or something like that. It just seemed on like that. There was like a 5-minute section where they went down this kind of path where I was like, "Are y'all trying to blame regular people for this?"
Well, I understand what you're saying.
I was like, because there's people that swore an oath that new information and knew a crime had been committed and didn't even file charges.
Right, and I agree with you on that. But my thing is, unfortunately, we're talking about what things should be.
Yeah.
Versus the way things are.
Yeah.
And the way things are is that's the at least the way it was happening in Chicago.
Yeah. At least in the 90s and early aughts.
And so I don't know. Again, I think it just all works together. I don't think you can break down, who had 56% of the blame and
yeah, okay.
I gotta stick to people continuing to support R. Kelly in terms of buying his music and going to his shows, contributed, of course, completely to him making more money, because that's how he made his money. And had he not been making more money, had he not continued, his scale of celebrity, it would have all fallen down, is what I'm saying. And it's crazy to me that, and I don't want to say people, I want to say we, because I really don't remember, because it's been going on for so long, I really don't remember for me at what point I was like, okay, I'm done. I really don't remember at what point I did. I know it's been a long time, very long time, since I've listened to R. Kelly anything, but I don't remember at what point I stopped. I honestly know it was not directly after Aaliyah. I knew about Aaliyah.
Yeah.
It was not.
For me, I pulled back after Aaliyah, but I wasn't done. Then when the case happened, I was like, all right, man, I'm out. Like, but still, you're talking about years and years apart.
Yeah. So I really don't know why, and that maybe that'll be something that somebody else can do. Do a documentary about, some psychologists and psychiatrists could do a documentary about why we
was never pushed like it was a big deal
with that.
It was never pushed like it was a big deal because it never caught fire because he had money to suppress stories.
But the thing is, it shouldn't have to be pushed like it's a big deal because we knew what was being stated. Yeah. And then after some time, we knew not just that it was being stated, but that it was true.
Yeah.
No one can say at this point in time, that it's not true, that he and Aaliyah were married, and she was indeed 15, and they went to Mexico because they couldn't do it legally in America. No one can sit here at this date and time and say that's not true, because we all know now that's true.
Yeah. But they got the annulment or whatever, and it just kind of disappeared. It's because you know how the news is. The news lets you know what's a big deal by the stuff that they keep hitting in their head.
Right.
And it kind of disappeared, and I think people just,
once you
it
know,
fell
you
out of
know.
the zeitgeist.
But once you know, you know. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
but what
You
I'm saying
can't
is I
unknow
think it fell out of, out of sight and out of mind. So it's like the story came up, and people were like, oh, it's crazy. Then they were like, all right, they're not married anymore. And then the story disappeared and people forgot.
Right. Well,
just like
I don't
anything
think
else.
people
The
forget.
news cycle continues.
I'll be honest with you. I don't
not
think
that they
people
forgot, but it just wasn't. It's the news cycle. Like, perfect example. Donald Trump can do something right now, and guess what? There'll be a wildfire, or there'll be a tornado, or something will blow up, something will happen, and we'll forget. We'll be like, oh, hold up, didn't he do something? I forgot. Did he say something?
But we don't forget. But the thing is, we don't forget what a butthole is. You get what I'm saying? And we've learned
the specific things.
But what I'm saying is, we've learned that he's a butthole because of the specific things he's done. And it's funny how we haven't done the same thing with R. Kelly. Now, we could forget all the details of everything, but we still haven't come to the conclusion that this brother's a pedophile. I don't deal with him. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Because it's like when you stop dealing with folks, right? It might be somebody you stopped dealing with 10 years ago. You may not remember all the details, but you like, I don't deal with him. It's like, why? I don't remember exactly why. I just remember some funny stuff happened. I don't deal with him. And you stick to that. You can't sit here and give me detail. You just know, look, I don't deal with him. I don't mess with him. Now, if you sit down and have to think about it, then you'll start to remember X, Y, and Z and such. But we have not, we are just getting to the point where we're doing that with R. Kelly.
Well, it's because it's being shoved in our face. I think one, it's being shoved in our face, and two, I don't think anyone knew outside of Chicago how deep this was.
Right.
This isn't, because even to my knowledge, I was aware of two people, Aaliyah and the tape girl. That's who I was aware of. Now, this documentary shows us that there were, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe more girls.
I thought there was like 40.
I don't know, a lot of them. All right. And then not only that, but also threatening to kill people's families, moms and dads and stuff.
Yeah.
Trafficking people across state lines. This is a whole different thing of me thinking, oh, there's two girls. Well, maybe there's only one because the other girl didn't come to court. So maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Then we found out why.
Yeah, but at the time.
Right.
I'm saying at the time of 2004 or whatever that happened, that's all I knew. Yeah. So now we're like, oh, no, this dude is a mob boss of human trafficking and pedophilia. So this is a completely different situation. You know what I'm saying? Than what we or what some people like me would have known, which is two people. One way back in the 90s that was divorced and stopped. And then another one where it seemed to be real, but then
that's even go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then another one where it seemed like, oh, okay, this is real. Oh, she didn't show up. Maybe it's not real. All right. And then I heard nothing else until the documentary.
Right. And I do see what you're saying, but I'm just wondering how even if we start with Aaliyah, you get what I'm saying? Is that I would just like to understand how we all have kind of minimized that, because that was huge. Now, I know some people would say, well, why would Aaliyah do that? And that's not nearly as important. She was 15.
She didn't.
It's not nearly as important.
She didn't know.
It's not nearly as important as why he did that. For him to go through the whole thing of taking her to Mexico, of having someone else, which I still believe, if I got it right, was her freaking uncle, who signed the document.
I think her uncle is the one who set that up. Who
signed the actual document and falsifying that she was 18 years old and go through that whole thing. And then, we just kind of sweep it under the rug simply because, her parents, made them get it annulled or whatever else happened. That is a major issue. And then with all of that, they named her album Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. It's like
It's hiding in plain sight.
we were being slipped the Kool-Aid, drinking it and going, this tastes funny, and continue to drink it.
Well,
you see where I'm coming from?
I feel you. I feel you on that. I did want to move on to these two clowns, Jen Emmerich and Lisa Perryman Dunn, the two white women that were like, I worked for R. Kelly. I was about to call him Ron Kelly. Ron Kelly is like probably some newscaster in like Kentucky or something. But I worked for R. Kelly, and he did nothing wrong. He never did any. Yeah, of course, nothing in front of you.
Like,
just like, remember the engineers that were like, I know there was people downstairs, but we weren't around to go downstairs, and they didn't come upstairs. So, I knew there was people down there, but I didn't know what was happening. So of course, R. Kelly didn't do anything in front of you.
But for them,
and that's a perfect example that shows someone can be completely different to me than they are to you. To you,
but this is my
R.
thing,
Kelly
though.
didn't do nothing. R. Kelly was just in there making music, living his life.
Right, but this is my thing, though. It's one thing to say, I didn't see anything and he never did anything in front of me. That's a totally different statement from saying he never did anything. And my problem I had with them is they were adamant about that wasn't who he was. He would have never done this, and it's like,
because to them, he was probably this great, upstanding hero guy. I mean, the money doesn't hurt either. But I mean, think about all of his victims. They talk about how charming and how nice and how giving and warm he was. He was probably just like that to them. And then, do you think that he was spitting on people in front of them? No. I
don't believe that, but I do believe they saw the rotation of young girls. Especially, I can't remember which girl it was. One of those girls was like his personal assistant.
Oh, yeah,
She saw the rotation. She was the one that was sitting up in McDonald's with him on that tape.
Oh, that was her?
That was her.
Oh, snap.
After he had got out of jail, he went and posted up in the McDonald's where he used to pick up girls. That was her.
Oh, boy.
So she was like her right-hand man. You know.
She probably saw some stuff.
She saw some stuff.
Because speaking of seeing some stuff, Michelle from Destiny's Child leaned over and asked that girl Tiffany Hawkins, asked the hairdresser. Yeah, like, how old are you?
Yeah.
How old are you? And because I think Michelle probably saw a lot of young girls
going in and out,
walking around, and it was like, and I mean, of course, she's probably not able to go in downstairs or upstairs or wherever, but she was probably like, there's a lot of young girls here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on.
And I don't see nobody walking over to nobody's microphone.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what's going on, but something ain't right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But speaking of something not being right, Tiffany Hawkins, who was the first girl, the biggest thing is she quoted him saying, I'm going to give you my address. Why don't you bring some friends to my apartment and we'll see how it goes? What? Now, when you're a kid, and this is why it works on kids, because the kid, it doesn't hit you like, bring some of my friends. You're probably just like, maybe he wants to, have my friends there so I don't feel, uncomfortable or something like that.
And I'm going to tell you that's what it is. I'm going to tell you that's what it is. It's a trick. It's a, what's the word I wanted to use? It's a tactic on his part. Because see, if she can come with friends, then obviously I don't want to do anything to her. Because if I wanted
there's going to be witnesses.
If I wanted to do something to her, why would I ask her to bring her friends? If I wanted to take advantage, why wouldn't I want to just have her alone? Bring your friends.
Yeah. And then finding out that he had been grooming her friends and sleeping with her friends way before her. Way before her. Because her friends came over there and probably knew what it was. Because I mean, you have some people that kind of walk in somewhere and they know what the deal is. And I mean, let's not front. R. Kelly, his music is probably generally, for the most part, sexual in nature, or at least romantic in nature. So, you have these young girls that probably already think he's, the money, he's handsome, and he's been singing to me.
I want to say this though. I just thought about this. Right?
So they probably went up there, and some of them might have knew what it was, and others he groomed, and this, that, and the third.
But I just thought about this, right? Okay, so she said that, all of her friends slept with him way before she did.
Yeah.
And she didn't know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is my question. Weren't y'all friends outside of going to his house?
Yeah, why didn't y'all ever speak about what happened at R. Kelly's house? There's no way that she never caught wind of anything. Like, even if they weren't like, hey, R. Kelly did all of this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G stuff, but they might have been like, oh, I kissed R. Kelly, or, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was hugging up, or I was, girl, we had a good time, or something, you know what I'm saying? Nothing. Also, the way she set up the story, I think she's the girl that ran away, but was trying to front, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
is that
she
the
was
same
leaving,
girl?
she was leaving some spots out of her story.
Yeah, is that the same one who was like, so he was paying for my food and paying for my clothes, and that's how it went? And it's like, what you mean that's how it went?
Yeah, it's like.
Are you saying you ran away? It's like, say what it is you're trying to say, girl.
Well, because you have this part of the story from her perspective that she's still trying to protect herself, from being, ridiculed or whatever. But it's like, girl, just say what happened.
When you leave a hole in the story.
When she said the part about a roof over her head and stuff, and then then I put that together with the problem she was having at home with her mom and her mom's boyfriend. I was like, oh, you ran away. You ran away. And you ain't had no place to stay, and R. Kelly gave you one.
Right.
And then probably from that moment, probably started sleeping with
you. He may have very well convinced her to run away.
True that. But her conveniently leaving that out, I'm like, that messes things up.
Yeah, it makes me look at you like, just don't do that.
Yeah. But this is also the girl that brought the prosecution, and the state did not prosecute.
Yeah.
They started that whole settlement factory thing.
Oh my God.
Where you had Susan Loggins just
NDA
settlement after settlement after settlement.
She was just making her money.
Before that. Because that whole, like you said, if we got to take, meaning the regular audience got to take props for the Aaliyah thing, since Aaliyah, the city and state government of Chicago, or Illinois at least, city for Chicago and state for Illinois, at least knew R. Kelly needed to be looked at.
Yeah.
And they didn't. Then, girl comes with the prosecution. Lawyer took the deposition, all this stuff. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So that's why when old girl coming out now talking about we need witnesses to come out and tell. No. Witnesses came out.
Yeah. We need people to come forward and tell their story. They did.
And you, the city and state government of Illinois, let them down. Don't be trying to come to us, the audience, like it's our fault. No, they came to you way back in the 90s, and y'all let them down. So don't be coming trying to like save face, like, well, they just need to come and tell their stories.
Yeah.
No, this is your fault.
Yeah.
Then the part about the brother setup, I want to touch back on is when he brought his brother to him and was like, I'm going to give you, was it $100,000?
No, it was $50,000 in a car.
$50,000 and a car to take this charge for me. Bruh, I could go to jail for life with this.
And I can't drive a car out of there.
When I'm in jail, fool.
But my thing is this too. You're going to be so cheap. $50,000 in a car? Like, you're supposed to offer something that's going to like make somebody like sit down and go home and really think about this thing. That don't make nobody go home and sit down and think about nothing.
Look, I My grandma says, like, when you ask her something crazy, my grandma will be like, I can't, how you going to fix your mouth?
Yeah.
How you going to fix your mouth to ask your brother to take not only the rap for a crime you did, but a rap for a crime so egregious
that you're going to get half killed in jail anyway.
Yeah, it's not like your crime was like stealing a car.
Right.
Or like, something, and I know people going to like say, well, you splitting hairs on crimes. Yes, our society sees crimes differently. You know what I'm saying?
And
so if you steal a car, that's not seen as bad as raping young girls over and over, threatening their families, all kinds of mess.
Yeah.
Child pornography, all kinds of stuff. It is seen differently. And in my opinion, should be seen differently.
Yeah.
So you want me to take a crazy crime from you for $50,000. And then when he refused, he still kept telling people, yo, R. Kelly is a trip, son. But the sad part is his brother, who probably could have, and I know we talked about this, could have put the nail in the coffin with the tape that he had.
Mm-hmm. The same brother
that he was trying to blame. He gave the tape to R. Kelly, gave it back to him.
And he burned it.
And of course, R. Kelly burned it. I mean, he had to. But just, it shows how twisted a relationship can be when you care for someone, when someone's your brother, but they're, you know what I'm saying? And they've both been victimized, because you brought that up too. Like, they've both been victimized. So, they're in weird places with each other.
Right.
But I think after that moment, because without so many words, it seems like that brother don't mess with R. Kelly no more. It seemed like they don't speak or nothing.
Yeah, the one in jail is still, like really wanting a relationship, and the other one, and I can understand just from what we know, and there's so much more, of course, we don't know.
Yeah.
And who knows? There may be blame, that some feel towards the others. There may be guilt that they feel in terms of protecting each other, and not having protected each other, and who knows? Maybe one feels that, one of them should have protected the others. Maybe one feels like, one of them has enabled R. Kelly through the years. Who knows? It seems like it's just a lot. It's a lot that started from when they were children, and they're like 50, 60-year-old men now.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I wanted to get into Lanita, who braided R. Kelly's hair for, I'm not sure how long she said. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she said how long, but Lanita is a special case, not because she was a young girl. She was a girl when she met R. Kelly.
Well, she wasn't.
But, how, huh?
Yeah, because she wasn't.
Oh, no. I said not because of that. You know what I'm saying? Because, she wasn't one. So, I mean, not because of that, but it's because of her story that makes it so much, it just makes it so heart-wrenching, because she's talking about, like, her family wouldn't even let her finish sentences, and like so she had, this is a person who had been probably crapped on by her family, friends, people in her circle, school, work, whatever, all her life. Mm-hmm. And then finally R. Kelly comes along, of course, because of celebrity culture. She's like, oh, R. Kelly's so great. And then he's listening to her. He's encouraging her. He's doing all of this great stuff. But he's paying her only $100 to braid his hair.
And that's not every time.
And then, now, don't get me wrong, she said that she got other, high profile clients, and that's cool. But this is outside of what he did to her. If he was so encouraging and cared so much about her, why you can't pay her properly? You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole. I guess why am I asking him to pay somebody properly when he's spitting on people?
Because then he can convince her that she ought to be just grateful for the opportunity and for the exposure and for the networking.
Oh boy, yeah, I know.
And plus, she said, I didn't care how much I got paid. And I'm sure she conveyed that to him. And he's like, great.
Yeah. He was like, good.
Good deal for me. Never tell anyone that. Even if that's how you feel. Never let them know that you're more excited about the opportunity than the money.
Yeah. Him finding someone. And I mean, of course, he finds everyone he finds, you know, is wounded, is broken, has been destroyed, or has been, you know, severely beaten down emotionally by someone else. But it just seemed in Lanita's story like it was even more so. Like she had no refuge with family, friends, or anything. And what he did to her, after one of his friends came on to her and she was just like, no, I don't want to, be in a relationship or whatever. I have kids and a husband or whatever. And for him to essentially rape her, you know what I'm saying?
He violated
her. It was more like probably sexual assault.
Yeah, he assaulted
because I
her.
don't think he penetrated her. It was just oral sex. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too.
And I don't know the lines legally for that.
She never outright said that. But see, to me, that's not the part where he assaulted her, because she said that he approached her and asked her to do that.
Yeah.
And she never said it.
But he said she grabbed her braid and kind of like pulled her head down. And then that's when he started to spit on her. And No,
he didn't spit on her.
Yeah, he did.
No, he spit in his hand, remember?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He climaxed in her face, which she later realized. So that whole thing is just, it's a lot.
And the reason I bring her up is not only how he attacked her, but then also what the justice system, especially the law enforcement, did after she reported.
Right.
She said her block fill up with cars. They send a black woman up there to talk to her, and she leaves her radio on so everybody in the cars can hear.
So she's hearing her words repeated and blaring over the other car radios, pretty much over the whole block.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's to humiliate her.
Right. And to pretty much shut her up.
Yeah. She finally did get to a detective, though, and they did raid the studio. And at the last minute, they did find something to prove that she was there.
Because by the time they got there, R. Kelly had told everybody, we don't know her.
Yeah. But did we hear of any arrests?
No.
Did we hear of any case after that?
No.
She was pushed off to Susan Loggins. So once again, this ain't people buying CDs. This ain't people going to the R. Kelly concert. These are police that have gone there, been proven she was there, found her bags and stuff in the trash can. No one arrested. No one questioned. Interesting how we got to have this nice little 5-minute segment about, well, you people out there listening to music need to... The law enforcement opened their radio and played it all over the block. Not Ted, the bank manager that listens to R. Kelly. No, won't him. What he did to her was horrible. And it just hurt watching her.
Yeah, it did.
Telling that.
She was a broken woman.
Because he flipped on her crazy.
Yeah. Now, I will have to say this. I still didn't like the way they mixed together the women who were girls at the time that R. Kelly was with them and the women who were already grown women. I feel like they needed to separate the two, not to diminish anything that happened to the women, but I still think it needs to be distinguished. You know,
now they
because
do show their age when they
they
bring
show
their
their age.
up.
I understand that, but they still mix them together, just like they did in part 1, and I don't like that, because I think, to me, it needs to be clear that we're dealing with really two different things. We're dealing with a man who was a clear pedophile, and we're also dealing with a man who just seems to enjoy violating women. So it's one thing for you, because I don't know, it's one thing for you to figure out how you need to manipulate young girls, but then you also go into what you need to do to manipulate grown women. And I just feel I don't want it all pulled together. I don't know, something about it all being pulled together bothers me, because part of me makes me feel like some people are going to keep thinking that that's all he did was target young girls. But it's more than that. He was targeting women. And I think for a lot of people, they need to understand.
He preferred young girls.
He preferred young girls, but he wasn't just targeting young girls. You know, this happened to grown women. And I think people need to understand that this could happen to grown women.
Yeah, and I think, at least from the timeline that the documentary was given, it seemed like he kind of switched to grown women when it got a little hot. When it got a little hot for the young girls.
Now, having said that, I know in the first one, I was a lot harder on the grown women, and I pretty much ain't have no patience for the grown women.
Yeah.
I will say, part 2 did a much better job with explaining the emotional and mental background, if you will, of these grown women. Yeah. What they had already been through, and that they were already kind of primed to be manipulated and to be abused. Yeah. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because the everyday woman, you know, who should have learned from her teenage years and just become wiser as a grown woman, should not just be walking down the street and say, hey, R. Kelly, yeah, I want to be with you, knowing everything that he's been accused of. At the same time, I'm kind of, I go back and forth with it in my mind, because at the same time, you 20-some, 25, 26, up to 30 years old, and you know what you know about R. Kelly.
Well, you had that girl in college that was a PK and was never allowed to date in high school.
Ooh.
And he got her in college.
Man.
So she had never really had any relationship with a boy at all, or a relationship with anyone.
I forgot about that.
They did a good job of displaying this, because this season had a little less spectacle and a little less like dun dun when they showed, right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it did a good job. Do you
remember who that was?
I can't remember that young lady's name. She is the one who is a brand ambassador now. It's not Dominique. It's not Geronda, but I can't remember her name right now.
The one with the eyelashes and the long. Was it the one with the eyelashes?
She had the long hair. I don't know if she had. I mean, I know she had eyelashes, but
you know what I mean. Hold on, the one I just showed on the shirt.
But
so yeah, going back to parental responsibility with that one. So one of the young lady's parents did not allow their children or daughters, I don't know if it was all their children, but I know their daughters, to date in high school, Lord. In high school.
You're setting them up for emotional failure.
You're setting them up for failure.
Even if they never met a R. Kelly type, you made them ill-equipped to have actual relationships when they're coming into adulthood, which is the prime time to probably find someone that you would click with and possibly be married to. Because now they're ill-equipped. They've never had a relationship. They've never had to be able to think about more than themselves, or maybe make compromises or choices or anything that a regular relationship would provide.
Absolutely.
They've never had that. Their parents their parents handicapped them in that way.
Absolutely. They haven't given them the opportunity to practice discernment.
Yeah.
Because, and, not only, thinking about, adulthood is a prime time for you to find someone, but what about, the moments and the times that people have sincerely found love in high school and married their high school sweetheart? I know people that absolutely did that.
Me too.
But high school is the time where you do date and you show them, you can guide them and show them what healthy dating looks like, what healthy relationships look like, what behavior is appropriate and inappropriate, what your boundaries should be. Practice discernment, figure out, what you can, do better. Learn lessons from what choices you could have made differently when a relationship ends, or if that person just, was a mean person or not. All those different things, that's healthy.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Not allowing your children to date at all. Are you kidding me right now?
It is
just,
it's overprotection that's not necessary.
And it's selfish.
Also, well, not only selfish, it's also damaging.
Yeah.
Because now you're putting them out into the world, into college, and they've never been in a situation where they've had to find out who someone is for themselves.
Which makes them a walking target.
Yes, especially in the case of a R. Kelly. I did want to talk about, they talked about Geronda and Dominique. Mm-hmm. And Geronda kind of got hooked up first because she was the one, out there kind of picketing and all that. And the way Dominique came, because in the first season, we thought that she just recruited her friend. And R. Kelly was like, well, hey, I'm going to be gone. When I'm gone, you can have a friend here. That's how he pitched it to her. And what really is, I want another girl. I want a new girl to whatever. And, I guess for whatever it's worth, I'm glad that Dominique was combative and gave him a hard time. For whatever that's worth. But, we get to see a deeper side of that relationship between those two and how they had left, especially with Dominique. And because Dominique, we also see through the BBC documentary that they did.
And if anybody has not watched that, there's a BBC documentary that talks specifically about Dominique and her mom, and then the other girl, Joycelyn. Sorry, Joycelyn.
I think it's Jocelyn or Joycelyn.
Joycelyn.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic documentary.
And it's
really fantastic,
especially if you don't want all of the glitz and glam of the Lifetime one.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I'm gonna say too, Dominique, even just watching this documentary, you can still see in Dominique that she's a sweet, sweet person. Through all of the pain, through all of the tears, through everything, she just seems like a really, just a really sweet girl. She really does. And I don't know, my heart gets touched anytime I would hear her speak and her mom, because the way her mom went to get her daughter is I'm getting chills just even talking about it. But the way her mom just went out there and was like, I'm going to get my child. Yeah. And she did. She didn't do it screaming and hollering and wailing, but she went out there determined to get her daughter, and she did. And the moment, and this is mostly in the BBC documentary, but they show a clip of it in this one, when, she gets to the door and she's talking to her daughter and she's like, please, please. And you see Dominique's face as she's looking at her mother, and you could tell in her face, I've broken her heart. You could just see in her face where she's looking at her mother and she finally gets, I've broken her heart, and you can almost see her snap out of whatever is going on. And it just the fact that her mom just was like, whatever, I'm going to get my child. And she did.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted before we get out of here, because I know we've been on here for a minute, but I mean, there's a lot to unpack from this season. But you have the idea from even the victims saying, especially one of them, saying that putting R. Kelly in jail would be kind of like they imagine a 15-year-old boy in prison. And I know that there's ideas that when you are abused, if you don't get help or whatever, you can be kind of like stuck in that time, like emotional growth. But I fire back and disagree with that because of what that 15-year-old boy has mutated into. It's not a situation where you're looking at a victim who is going to jail for something else, not becoming a victimizer, going to jail for something else, but because he never, fully grew as a man and maybe he couldn't stop stealing or something like that. You're talking about someone who turned into a victimizer, and a victimizer so, I guess, so powerful and so evil that he would threaten the life of people's families. That he would, beat people, punch people, slap people, choke people, all kinds of stuff. This isn't a 15-year-old boy anymore, and for me, I think there was a period when he was. Maybe up to Aaliyah, maybe even a little after Aaliyah. But after Aaliyah, I would not consider, even though I know he was victimized, but now I can only deal with what he has become.
Right.
I can't, and I know everybody loves, they want to see, Vader turn around and redeem himself or something, but sometimes redemption don't come.
Well, this is the thing. It's about emotional maturity. And it's what I heard, I believe Dr. Phil said. He said the point or the age at which you are when you are victimized is where you become, not all the time, but a lot of the times is where you become stuck. So if you are molested or raped at 10, you can become emotionally stuck at 10. Mm-hmm. Or if it's at 15, or if it's at 16, you can become emotionally stuck at 15. So a lot of things that you do and your emotional reactions can seem very juvenile because that's where you were victimized and that's where something became stuck. And I think that's kind of what they mean. So when he would snap, when something wasn't the way he wanted it to be, or, when he would cry, like they would talk about, he would cry at the drop of a hat about different stuff. To me, that's showing that he's emotionally stuck. Now, that was also manipulative, but it's no different than what kids do.
Yeah.
Kids can cry because they know they get a reaction, or they'll get mad because they don't know how to reason this, that, and the third. So I think there's something to that, but it looks crazier because he is a grown man. Well,
also the lengths as which it's gone. You know what I'm saying? But I guess you take the situation with Azriel, which I'm glad she's gotten out of that situation. Mm-hmm. But we have new news of her on social media with Joycelyn, who is still kind of with R. Kelly, right, and them fighting back and forth.
Right. But Azriel is at least at home.
Azriel is at least at home. But you could see her father was tired. He looked like he had
been in a war.
And especially the part where they talked about, where their son talked about, my mom quietly blames him, he quietly blames her, and then they both quietly blame themselves. Right. And nobody's, and this is the devastation and the kind of the ripple effects from this. Right. And the Clarys are different than the Savages. The Clarys, Azriel was sneaking away. So when when your kid lies to you, I mean, they just lied to you. You don't know. Right. You know what I'm saying? She told me this, and she's never been the type of child to lie. So, you know, I'm less likely to disbelieve her, you know what I'm saying, or not believe or whatever. And just to see that Azrael is home, I guess is a good thing. But to see at least the way she was acting on social media earlier today on the story from, I believe, Grapevine or The Root, it's not a good look. Yeah, but there might have just been an emotional time between those two women.
But it's also, you know, it's going to be rough for a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
Because these are situations where all of these people will probably need very intense counseling and therapy for a while.
I mean, for a long while.
You know, for a very long while. Guys, thanks for hanging with us.
Yes.
For listening. This is a very heavy situation, so I mean, I don't mind it being heavy in the comments. I do try to keep this all ages, so please try to keep your comments all ages. To my right, I have the awesome, the wonderful, the amazing, the beautiful Lady Lisa.
All right, y'all.
Oh boy. Anyway, guys, NERDSoul, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. NERDSoul, which is hip hop and geek put together, a place where we can take these situations, take these stories, take these characters, and have a deeper conversation. And I think this is a conversation that's important because this is a conversation most important for our daughters, but definitely don't sleep. This is something that we need to talk to our sons about as well, because 3 boys, one of which grew up to become a monster, were victimized, and that's what set this all in motion. So much love. Thank you for chilling with us. Thank you for hanging with us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.